Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Hey guys, welcome back to SoundVaaibs. It's Nate, Patty McD, or whatever. Cool. Discussion. What's up? How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah,
I've got a whole.
I've been ready all week, man.
I got a whole thing
boiling.
for you. I got a whole thing for you now. Check this out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, basically, stop being a doos and communicate. There you go. Episode done. Episode's done. Cool. I'll see you guys. Cheers.
Oh, well, you're assuming that the human animal is a very simple and predictable creature.
Are you calling us animals now? Is that what you're doing?
Last one of us.
We're just animals. Animals.
Yeah. Look, the human animal is predictable in one sense. The fact that it's unpredictable.
Wow. That's very insightful.
Yeah. And it's like, we all know this.
I was just going to say, did you discover this recently?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, like I guess that's the thing, you know, one can draw out a plan of action and you know, one can draw the template for a project and present it to the team right from the word go.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that the future is unpredictable.
Yes.
The future of people's lives is unpredictable.
Absolutely.
So, you know, setting up a band and saying this is what we want to achieve within the next, 6 months to a year to 5 years and onwards is easy. And to have everyone say, yeah, that sounds good, that's also easy. But in those time periods that you've set out for your master plan, assuming you've set out a master plan at all.
Yeah.
Freaking good idea if you do.
Well, look, it's necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't think it's necessary, then you're going to learn.
Yeah.
You're going to burn, you're going to learn.
Yeah. But, you know, we are talking about relationships and relationship dynamics with your band members. So it's like, you know, it's helpful to mitigate problems if you do have a sort of a master plan that everyone can be on board with and adhere to. So I think what I'd like to get down to is what is a way that you can, protect the band vision and the band life when you do start getting wobblies, where people say, you know, this trajectory that we're on, for whatever reason, I'm at odds with it, or it's not working out for me.
Here's an idea.
Uh-huh.
Write your Wikipedia of what it should look like in 5 years.
Okay. I like this. Yeah.
How's that for a fucking idea? Write your own Wikipedia.
Yeah, dude. I've actually done this before. Hey?
Oh, have you?
Yeah, like I've I love digging into the stories of the bands I enjoy the most. I study their journey. And what I've noticed about, you know, like just to mention a few examples, I really enjoy Paradise Lost. I really enjoy Amon Amarth and Sabaton. And, you know, there's certain bands that just highlight in my life. And each one of those bands, which are one of my, let's call them bucket list, where I must see them live and I like to own their t-shirts and stuff. It's like I've studied their story.
Yeah.
And what I've also noticed is for most of them, it took them a couple of albums and usually the better part of a decade before they really mattered.
Yeah, before they became relevant.
And what I've also noticed is in that time period, they've had member changes.
Uh-huh. I was getting to that.
Quite a few member changes, actually.
You know,
so
member changes is it's a tricky business. Yeah.
But now this kind of borrows back to, we were talking last week about expectations.
Yeah.
People come into a band situation with certain expectations, and often they find, no matter what their commitment from day one was, they find that their expectations are not always being met, and it disheartens them. And somewhere along the way, some members might be shed because of this.
Yeah.
And by the time the bands we all know and love actually reached their situation of relevance, where people cared about them, we're not always aware of how many members have already been shed and replaced.
I don't agree with this shed. Shed sounds to me like old skin has to come off for new skin to...
Maybe not a fair...
It's not a fair...
choice of word on my part.
No, I don't think so. I think I would use the word adjustment.
Okay.
Basically because that's what you're doing.
Yes.
Because when someone goes out and someone new comes in, you have to adjust your communication. You have to get them involved in the culture of the band that already exists.
Yeah.
You have to work on your collective ethos, because if you don't do that, then everyone's acting a certain way when they really shouldn't be, because it could be detrimental to your environment. So I would say yes, adjustment.
And fair, let's also admit, oftentimes a band member going out does not mean the weakest link is going out.
That's true.
It might just be that their life situation in their private capacity is no longer conducive to band life. So you often lose a very talented person.
It's more times than not that it's actually one of the not the forefathers, but like the sort of the spine of the group can sometimes disappear, and then it sort of leaves the group in a mess where either they disband or they pull someone in that just didn't have that as much of an impact as what they had previously.
Kind of like Sepultura when the Cavalera brothers bailed.
Exactly. But
they still persevered and made something else out of their...
Yeah, they did. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they never really...
Oh, dude. I watched them live here in Cape Town, I think it was 2014.
Yeah.
And they were bomb awesome.
Well, okay, fair enough.
But it's a different band, granted. But, you still have some of the original members, and they persevered with the name. But after the Cavalera Bros bailed, like they had to reinvent the band.
Yes.
And I think the band that exists today, no, it's not the Cavalera gig, but it's still an awesome band.
Or if anyone's listening who may know this, it's not a Cavalera conspiracy.
Well played.
Anyway.
Or maybe it is a Cavalera
conspiracy.
So
wait, oh no, I've lost my train of thought. Here we go.
Yeah, we were talking about like bands adjusting.
Yes, adjusting.
Over a period of time.
So I wouldn't say shed, I'd say adjust. And I think adjust does do this whole band member change dynamic justice. Because when you have a member that may not have fit the mold entirely, like maybe they thought that it was going to work for them.
Yes.
And then they later discover down the line that actually, wait, this is not for me.
Expectation,
which again goes back to communication from the beginning, which goes back to master plan, etc.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that some bands have had members come in and go out and vice versa, where it's actually been better. It's been stronger, more positive. Like I've had that experience personally with one of my projects, and it was almost a breath of fresh air to find someone who gelled better with the rest of us. And not to say that the previous person was absolutely rubbish, because I mean there was obviously a contribution there and there was an appreciation for that and so on and so forth. But the next person that comes in they just fit the mold a little better. And we managed to actually be more productive. We actually managed to release something after that. We played a few shows after that, and it was great. And there was still an adjustment that had to happen. Keyword here. And once that adjustment was made, it's now like there's an unspoken sort of, right, we need to do this, this, and this. And like we don't have to necessarily communicate overly, like too much about certain things, because it's just like it doesn't have to be said anymore, because it's ingrained there.
Yeah.
Like the vision is clear. But you do get situations where that is not the case. And that also comes back down to who you pick. And that's probably a conversation we'll have another time. But finding the right fit for your project is also very, very, very important. And what I find in recent memory, a lot of bands that have done this and have become more successful, it's been younger guys.
Yeah.
Much younger guys.
Yeah.
When I say young, I'm talking just out of school young.
Yes.
Like 18, 19, 20.
Yes.
Like some of them will have a lot of inexperience and a lot of adult things that they have yet to experience. Fair enough. But some of them are like musical prodigies that have not yet been explored. and they have all this infinite potential,
And they haven't been exhausted yet.
Yeah. They don't have all these crazy life commitments. They
Yeah.
don't have partners that they're tied to. They don't have homes.
And they haven't
things.
had so many, let's call it bring downs
Yes.
in their
yes.
life. So they still have that like primal energy.
Yes, which is necessary if you need to jumpstart something from the ground.
Absolutely.
And I find a lot of bands that put together members that have been rather seasoned over the years, or rather, I don't mean to sound negative here, but some people have been scarred by
Yeah.
previous outings
Yeah.
and such. And, you know, a lot of those bands suckle to get off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to the main topic at hand here. The relationships that you then build with new people, or people that have been adjusted in or adjusted out. You need to also understand that you cannot expect what you expected from the previous person in this new
Yeah. Precisely.
because that becomes
Problematic.
but not that problem does not sit with them.
It sits with you.
Sits
That
with
sounds like a you problem.
And that's exactly it. It
Yeah.
sounds like a you problem.
Which again comes to expectations. You know, sometimes you are in a band where you've achieved a certain level of something that you had been aspiring towards. You've found yourself in a situation where a new person needs to come in, and you're expecting them to step right into the shoes of the previous person, and now maybe you're giving them grief about that.
Yeah.
Not good.
No.
But I think sometimes, I mean, I've also been through, well, one band in particular, we've been going 15 years now. Yeah, and a lot has happened in that time. Luckily for us, not so very many membership changes, but I think our most significant change was when our primary writer moved to another country.
Yikes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So we had to find a replacement, and very creative, very able-bodied person, but also very astute in his ways of doing things. And what we noticed was the guy who came in to fill his shoes, we learned very quickly had so many merits of his own. Like, he would never be able to duplicate exactly what the previous guy did. Which from one point of view might feel like a weakness. But yet, with him in the group, we were able to achieve things that we never really considered possible before. So it took the band on a slightly different trajectory, but not a worse one. You know?
So it was an adjustment for the better.
Yeah. It was an adjustment. Look, it's not to say that anyone felt we needed that kind of adjustment prior, but when he came, and the fact that we for the most part accepted his limitations, but were willing to explore his strengths, it was like, okay, let's just realign how we do things, and for the sake of the relationships within the band, to keep everyone happy and proactive and optimistic, because those are like things that you need within that, let's call it the morale of the band unit. How is the morale? Is everyone feeling that they're in a position of thriving, or do they feel that they're in a sort of situation of decay or stagnation?
Yeah, stagnation's probably the biggest one.
And I think having that change, none of us wanted it. None of us would have asked for it, but it did happen. And I think we only realized with the fresh blood coming in that we had maybe reached a threshold of stagnation without even being aware of it. But suddenly having this like new input, we're like, oh, we could actually do things slightly differently, or we could evolve to some extent where we never felt it was necessary to evolve, but now we've done that and it feels good.
Yeah.
So the morale kind of went up a notch.
Well, that's positive to hear.
Yeah. So I think a lot of this has to do with what is your mindset when a hurdle like this is encountered. Like, is your mindset grief and frustration, or is it opportunity? And at this time, I kind of want to bring some names into the...
Oh boy.
No, but this is positive stuff.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen that as South Africans and as metalheads. There's one band that's really just sort of made us all stop and pay attention and say, wow, things are possible. that we've never thought possible before, but because here's the proof. And obviously I'm speaking about Vulvodynia. And when I look at those
Not the
guys,
disease, the band.
yeah, but when I look
Was it
at
a
those
disease?
guys,
It wasn't an infection. I can't
yeah. But I look at those guys' story and their trajectory, and what I have noticed is when the band first sort of, popped up on the radar, it was like, it was very young guys doing something very, at the time, I guess, experimental, pioneering, and we weren't sure how seriously to take it.
Yeah.
But I think if one looks at who the sort of core or songwriting nucleus of that band is, and their attitude towards what they're doing or what they're trying to achieve, like young people making very grown-up decisions about how they handle each change. And they've had like considerable member changes.
Absolutely.
But each time they've really chosen wisely.
Yes.
And that band's like member makeup is so high pedigree at the moment. Like you just cannot doubt their capability.
Absolutely.
But each time a position opened up, they just went straight for the jugular.
They went top oak after top oak after
yeah.
top oak. There was no weakness in judgment there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of inspiring to see that and to see what they've achieved since, in terms of international touring and like all that jazz. It's like, well, freaking well played, dudes.
Yes.
And like just keep it up, because personally I feel that I used the word just now of morale, and I think the morale for any heavy music musician in South Africa or in any isolated scene must be like, we've seen what is possible, where before we hadn't seen that.
Yeah, it's opened up a lot of eyes and a lot of opportunities as well.
But I think also, speaking about band relationship dynamics, you probably find that in the context of that particular band, it's also, we mentioned that when they need to choose a new member, they choose a very high pedigree. I think they're choosing members who also, with their level of experience and history in the music community, these people are pro.
Yeah.
So I think when they come into a band situation, they're not bringing personal baggage.
Yes.
And that's something we could commit a whole episode to.
Yeah, we could totally episode on that, bro.
It's like a lot of personal baggage which comes into a band environment and is not conducive to productivity and success.
Yes.
And that's the distinction between people who have a pro-muso attitude versus people who are just here to, I don't know, satisfy their ego.
We're just here to have a good time.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, that's not good enough.
Nope.
You know,
if you want to
have
do
a good time, if you can.
Yeah,
have a good time. But that's actually not why we're here. We're here to achieve certain goals.
Yes.
And there's time for work and there's time for play. That's what I always say. And I mean, if you ever speak to any of my bandmates, I actually come across as quite a tyrant in the band room environment. I actually demand quite a lot out of the people who share a band space with me, to the point where I think I can become a bit overbearing and painful. But it's like, that's also where relationships can come under strain. And sometimes I've noticed I'm the problem, but I'm also band dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when I see other people struggling, like I try and nurture them to a more comfortable whatever they need.
Here's a question for you, and this is more of a personal one, so feel free to answer as you would. Would you ever consider yourself to be in a project and not be band dad, or do you think
I've been.
You've been?
I've been, yeah.
And do those urges still creep up on you every now and again?
Yes.
And is that...
I suppress them.
So you suppress them, but is that conducive to your productivity, as your contribution?
No. I mean, I've played in several.
Yes, of course.
And in two of them in particular, one of them in particular, like I've absolutely just assumed the role of band dad.
Yes.
And we've reached the stage of our development where most guys in the project are okay with that.
All right.
But I've also been in one project where I started to assume a little bit more of that role, and it didn't actually gel very well at all.
Yeah. Sort of alienated a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I think maybe some of the members who had been there already before my arrival maybe felt a bit like usurped, which is fair. But you know, sometimes I receive communication and I interpret it the way I interpret it, and I get the sense that, all right, there's proactivity needed, there's goals being set, and I don't see them realistically being met. And if the discussion is that we want to achieve these things, then like someone needs to sort of step forward and say, well, if we're going to achieve these things, we need to change how we're going about it.
Okay.
And that's fine. You know, I accepted that was not necessarily welcomed, and I stepped back. I'm in another band at the moment where I feel I'm at risk of moving into that situation, but you know, we'll see what time delivers. But that particular project I kind of do appreciate, in that it's kind of open-ended. Those people are saying like, well, we want to be open and discuss everything. It's all seasoned guys too, but I want to be a bit more careful about how I tread in this situation after the last one.
Look, it's always good to just bear in mind where you are and what your position is. And to just accept. I mean, another thing that we can discuss on another date is accepting your role. Accepting your role can be very challenging in a multitude of different situations, band dynamics and such. But anyway, Pat, I think we wrap this one up and we continue next week.
Cool.
And it's been a great chat. I enjoyed this one quite thoroughly, and I appreciate it, and thank you for your input and so on and so forth.
Well, it's a fascinating topic.
You're a fascinating topic. So anyhow, thank you guys so much for listening to Sound Vibes. This has been episode 257,000. Where are we?
23.2.
Thanks. It's episode 23.2, sort of, kind of. Anyway, check us out on social media. Don't forget to follow Blended Podcast and Blended Audio and all the Blended family people, because Blended are great and you should support them. They're amazing. And we will be back next week with part 3 of this wonderful discussion about band relationships and dynamics and things. And thanks, Patty.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Nate.
All right. Catch you guys next time.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for listening to us ramble on about all things music and sound here on Sound Vibes, produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.